Merry Christmas, folks, and a Happy New Year. As tradition dictates, I always give a present on a Christmas and a New Year to usher everything in. Now, this doesn't exactly apply to all my quantum students, as it were, but it is a general education as to what the private law means and what the common law means. Now, as you folks know, out there in the world of fiction, the courts and the governments like to revenue words. So I get a lot of comments from common law people saying, Mark, we were in common law, we want common law, and why don't you teach us about common law? So I'm going to do exactly that, and I'm going to show you how it's being revenued right in front of your face. Okay? So when they write to you or you write to people in the private and confidential, you have just entered the world of the common law. Because that which is private is contracts between private people, okay, one private person to another. And you will know that as a private person. That is the word that has been revenued as private and confidential. But essentially it is a private contract between two or more people, not corporations. Now, the revenuing is exactly that. Where you had this word common law has now been revenued as the word private and confidential. And I will show you first-hand knowledge of how that system works as I go along. So what I'm saying to you as a gift to all those people that want this common law, which is another word for contracts, and it's another word for torts, how you operate that in the world of common law, in the world of private and confidential, is that you would write to those parties that are writing to you as private and confidential. Okay? We quantum people don't need to do this, but I'm educating the general public. If you want to do it in any other way apart from quantum, help yourself. Now, when you have done that 3 times, wrote to them in the private and in the confidential, to the actual men and women that run the corporations and the companies, and they fail to answer back in the language performance that you want, which is, it might be any language that you choose. It could be plain simple English, it can be common English, it can be colloquial English, but you choose the communication. And that's performance. If they do not perform on your third letter, you now have the means to take that into your conventional courts, okay? Because that's now a breach of contract. And another word for breach of contract is breach of peace. Now, here comes a little bit of the trick. When you have public law, what that means is that it governs the principles of a natural person as opposed to an artificial person, which is a corporation, an entity, and so on and so forth. Now, when they write to you, as it were, they're writing in a private and confidential, which means they're writing to you as one fiduciary to another. And because of this, it's still in the common law jurisdiction. But don't use the word common law. Make your letters private and confidential. And if they breach this 3 times, you now have the right to take it to a conventional court, operating out of, shall we say, the county courts. But you've got to make sure that it stays within that venue where you are the so-called natural person, as it were. And yes, there are lots of tricks with that, but you've got to have some sort of autograph to say that you are a natural living person, and a corporation has violated contract performance. So hopefully you folks have understood this, okay, as a Christmas present. The word common law has been revenued to the word private and confidential. And that usually means one person speaking to another. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you some documents, and these are all first-hand knowledge. Okay. I don't do theories and so on and so forth. Some of the information will be blanked out as not to give too much information out, but these are all natural letters. Okay. So, this particular letter comes through my letterbox, okay, and ignore the stamp and so on and so forth. That's me doing my business on it, as it were. When this comes through the letterbox, it's got the address of where it's coming from inside the letter. But on the back of the envelope, which is this, on the back of the envelope is registered to a debt collecting company. So the address that is in the envelope is different from this. This is actually an entirely different company, and I'm pointing that out to you and to them. And they write to you in what? The private and confidential. It says so at the top, private and confidential. But of course, it's just an adverb-verb scenario, okay? Pronouns and so on and so forth. But this is a general knowledge information. You've got to understand how the world of tricks works. If you don't, you will end up being the turkey, as it were, for Christmas. Okay, so hopefully everybody's understood that. So essentially, the present is, if they are writing to you in the private and confidential, which is another word for common law, why don't you do exactly the same thing? Write to them by name in the private and confidential for, say, a language performance. Or to say, tell us what this word means. Give us this dictionary with it. We don't fully comprehend what your lack of autograph on these documents are. How comes you're putting the company name in and still writing in the private and confidential? Because private and confidential is between one living person to another. But the emblem on the top right-hand corner of the document or the letter you get is from a artificial person, which is a corporation. This is a trespass and it is mail fraud and so on and so forth. Now, remember folks, I also deal with the world of plain sight and things like this. Chocolates inside gold coins. Learn how the gold works, ladies and gentlemen. Learn how the gold works. Now, my little bow here is gold. That's not coincidence, folks. This is gold. The tree there is gold. The tree there is silver. That's St. Peter's cross. Gold and silver locks the doors to wealth and knowledge. Okay, St. Peter's cross. You folks know that. So let's just quickly recap very visually what common law is. This is my common law cap, which is private and confidential, as in my old man's a dustman and he wears a dustman's cap. And be proud of it, okay? This is my common law cap. This is my private and confidential cap. Now, let me introduce you to another cap. This is my Santa Claus hat, which ironically is the fiduciary position. This is your judge's position, okay? But as you know from the screen on that side, that the video that I shot about the fiduciary overthrowing all of these things, where they wear the black coats and so on and so forth, the description and the link of which you're going to see at the bottom of the description box. Remember folks, this is a fiduciary position, and that's fine, which is Santa Claus. That brings you the gold and silver and the presents. And you have the common law. And nothing sits above the private and confidential, as it were, when it comes to common law. Where the swapping takes place, where the robbery takes place, is that you don't know the difference between this, and you don't know the difference between this, and you don't know the difference between your judge wearing death robes and a cloak on the top of his head to hide his wicked thoughts from the Creator. Anybody that believes that must be absurd. Okay? Common law, folks, and the fiduciary system.